Hey guys, let me know if you can hear me. Let me know if you can hear me. I heard that. So, alrighty then. I'm probably going to start in about 5 minutes. I just posted in a bunch of places, hopefully pick up a few people. I'm only really expecting, 1 or 2 people anyway, but you never know. You never know. Close as much stuff as I can. Alright, so I am just about ready. I decided not to plan too much because I just kind of wanted to see where things went. But so I'm not going to be following like a rigid path here. But there are some things that I left prep-wise for specifically the stream. And that is basically so that you guys could kind of see some stuff, and I could talk about why I do certain things a certain way and all that kind of thing. Right now, there's pretty much only one person actually watching, because I think one of the people it says is me. But we shall see. So, I'm literally going to officially start right at 7 p.m., which is right about now, actually. Welcome to you who is watching. As you can see, I'm playing back the video that I released yesterday is kind of like a last little bit of advertising for the stream. I didn't really expect, that many people to join in, maybe 1 or 2 people, but you got to start somewhere, and that's where I'm starting. I am not the best public speaker that there ever was, that is for sure. I do stutter a lot, so please bear with me on that. But let's go ahead and get started. So when I decided I wanted to start doing more Unreal Engine cinematics and that kind of stuff as part of my YouTube channel and all that kind of thing, I didn't really have much of a plan, but what I did have is a bunch of stuff that I could eventually convert over to Unreal Engine, and you know, a lot of this stuff comes from my professional history, like on Battlestar Galactica and shows like, you know, Defiance, and I've worked on the latest Star Trek TV show and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, I can't show the Star Trek stuff really ever, but for contractual reasons. But you know, I do have a bunch of old models and stuff like that that I can show. I am working on converting at least one of my Galactica models, possibly a few more, so I can have a scene and all that kind of stuff. But for today, just for today, we're gonna play mainly with this model, and this gun turret over here actually does come from one of my models from Battlestar Galactica, Blood and Chroma. Probably a couple models. I think I reused it in a couple places, but it has been retextured specifically for this live stream, because anything that I did for television shows over the last several years, well, really my entire career, was never really meant to go into a game engine. So this kind of thing is you know, it's going to just have to be converted, which is why a lot of stuff's going to take a lot of time. So I'm not going to be able to do that today, because that's going to take days and days just to do each model, because none of it was UV'd, and I have to work up a process for using Substance Painter, as well as a few other tools to make the large meshes able to be textured without using just massive amounts of texture data. This model here uses several 8K textures, texture sets, several 4K, and there might be like a couple that's lower than that. But the first thing I want to really kind of cover here is how I start I don't know what is referencing that. But how I start setting up a project. Now, I've already done most of the work, and really it's just going to come down to just kind of walking through like the basic setup of some of this stuff. The first thing I want to do is I'm going to take this model here and I'm going to put it into a blueprint. The main reason for that is so that without breaking the cinematics later on down the road, I can make changes to that mesh, or I could swap that mesh out for a different one and all that kind of stuff, because this sequencer animation tool is going to be looking for the root object. In this case, it will be a root actor. In this case, that would be the blueprint. And then any kind of inherent properties that I change over time that may break stuff if I like take something out and it's like missing a particular feature or something like that. But there's ways I can do that within Blueprint without breaking things like location, rotation, and that type of stuff. So we're going to call this one Shuttle BP, and it would help if I didn't type with caps lock on. So let's just delete that. And then we're just going to open that up. And whenever you create a blueprint in Unreal, it starts off as empty. You have your construction script and you have your event graph. We're not going to worry about these two things just yet, probably not today. But what we're going to do is we're going to take our shuttle object and we're going to attach that here, and we'll just simplify that name so we're not really looking at the file name. We can change whatever reference, to, because this is just essentially a variable. I'm explaining that J-R-I-B-I, Jed. I don't want to butcher that name if that is your real name, so I will spell it. Theoretically, you can just use the mesh, but the reason why I want to do the blueprint is so that if I ever need to make changes to the setup, I can do so without having to attach stuff later. And the main thing I kind of want to show here is placing lights on the mesh, and then you can do things like control those lights or whatever, and that will all be encapsulated within the blueprint. So you can animate the blueprint. You don't have to add any code or anything, really. We're just, so I just want to add a point light. I'm going to call this engine light. And so now we've got our light in here. Drop that in. Let's change its color. Okay, before I start getting too far up the reservation here, so let's go ahead and just drop this into the scene. As you can see, that light here is now illuminating the inside of that engine, and the more I kind of clone this around, and it doesn't have to be too perfect, but OCD is what it is. Compiling that, now I've got another light in there and all that kind of stuff. So if I were to just drag the mesh into the scene and animate just the mesh in sequencer, I wouldn't be able to make this modification without bringing those lights into the scene and parenting them. And what if I wanted to change the object and all that kind of stuff? Maybe I decide later on down the road I want to replace this with a Viper from Battlestar Galactica. I wouldn't be able to do that without having to redo all the animation and redo all the parenting and all that kind of stuff. If I just change it within the actor, or the blueprint actor, then I can have more non-destructive control over changes. And so that's why I do it this way. Actually, I thought I butchered that, but I didn't. There we go. Another thing I could theoretically do is, and I'm probably not going to do it in this particular video, but perhaps I'll do it in a follow-up one, is add weapons. I guess it depends on how far we get today. I'm planning maybe a 2 to 3 hour live stream today, so I don't want to go crazy. I think 2 hours is probably as much as any one person can take of my voice without going crazy. So just go ahead and compile, but it looks like it updated anyway. Save that. So now that I have those lights in there, as we look from an off angle, you can still see that light is kind of coming out of there. Let me know if you guys have any questions as I go. But you know, I could continue on doing this type of stuff, but setting up the various lights and all that kind of stuff. But it's not really necessary right now. But what I'm going to do another thing is also that you'll have access to all the different components you put into the blueprint directly as a drop down too within Sequencer. So let's just go ahead and start animating. So what the first shot is going to be at least one of these ships. They're not fighters, they're shuttles. Kind of like jump in as if it's coming at in from like hyperspace, a la Star Wars or something. I'm not going to do too many things in the way of effects, but the plan right now is to do 3 shots. Ship comes in from hyperspace, turrets kind of wake up, and look towards the ship, or the ship's coming in and start firing, and then the next shot is them, or the shuttle just kind of like making its way through the weapons fire and hopefully not getting destroyed. So it's going to be very simple, and that's going to take the bulk of the time. So let's just kind of go ahead and get going on that. I also haven't done a lot to place like this stuff around, and I will again set up a blueprint actor for this type of thing, and as I add details to things, I'm gonna hopefully set up some blueprints to make that easier. Like if I want to make it like a whole asteroid field, I can make a blueprint actor that like will take like a set of objects and clone them around or whatever, but I'm gonna save that towards the very end, depending on how much time we have. Like I said, I'm really only planning this for about 2 hours, so just kind of go where I eventually want it. What are we displaying? So let's just set that as its position. Go back here, and we're just going to go as far back as we can. Alright, so if we play it, just kind of comes back. Alright, so now what I have to do is I have to delete this keyframe here, a set of keyframes, because we don't want it to go past that. Keyframes there. And now we're going to open up the graph editor here, because we're going from a very far distance. We don't want it to, of course they changed the graph editor a little bit in 4.2.0. So now that we have this weird pop-up thing here, which I'm not accustomed to being there, but there are 2 materials on the planet. Eventually I might do particles on the engine. What I was mostly thinking of doing is putting cone geometry on there and doing a material that is more you know, that uses displacement and that kind of stuff. I don't actually have an asset ready for that. I mean, I guess I can show that being made. It's not terribly hard to do. But for now, at least, I'm going to stick with Unreal Engine, at least for this live stream, because I don't want it to get too complicated. Likely what I'm going to do is release a series of videos that that kind of show the different things that the different processes I go through for certain effects. Particles on the engines can get kind of out of hand as you animate stuff, especially at various speeds. On Battlestar Galactica Blood and Chrome, one of the issues that the lead tech artist was having, or breakout artist was having, was he was having trouble getting the weapons to fire as the fighters were flying really fast, because it was having like a multiplier effect on them, and it, even though technically, yeah, that would work and all that kind of stuff, just kind of with all the variance of speed and all that kind of stuff, it always just looked wrong. And so there was like a number of little hurdles and stuff like that we had to go through. So putting particles on the engines, you either have them so that their movement is consistent relative to the model, or you have them just drop off into world coordinates. And if you're going really fast, then you might see like a spark or a sprite just go boop, 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 out the back of the engine. And so that's why I like to use geometry for that. A little bit more control. Alright. So I'm going to take these. Oops. Forgot about you. Give it a beat or so. Okay. Alright, so let's go ahead and grab our camera. You know what, let me just create a new camera. Not get rid of the old one. And let's go here. Give it some keyframes to start with. And a few things I like to do is just kind of set up the camera and the lens and all that kind of stuff. I'm fine with that. Reset that. I don't really need to go below 4. Just find out where we are. All right, a little bit zoomed in here. I need to move everything out of the way. Is that tessellation on the material from? Yeah, there is a tessellation material on the planet, because it's just a default Unreal Engine sphere. It's actually 2 of them. One for the little bit of atmosphere on here, and then the one for the Mars texture there. Apologize if I'm not answering questions that quickly. Actually, let's go here and be here. All right, one of the things, it's always been a problem with Unreal Engine is, and I don't know why this is still an issue, but sometimes with rotation, unlike in every other 3D app where it kind of knows which direction you've rotated it, Unreal Engine doesn't, and I think that's something to do with how they how they've optimized the way the keyframing, the auto keys stuff works. Apologize if I stop talking because I'm trying to animate. Alright, so we're going to make this shot about 120 frames. And now we're going to take this time to kind of pose out this stuff here. So let me get rid of you. That off for a second. I don't want to accidentally start adding keyframes to things. Okay. So let's just start cloning these guys around. I would actually prefer at this stage to make blueprints with these, but I want to make sure that I'm not stopping too much to do all these little tweaky things. Just give them all kind of some random scale. This guy. Drag him in there. Get some rotation keyframes. There's a little bit of motion on there. I could use instance static meshes if you're talking about like painting stuff. Technically, every copy of an object within Unreal Engine is an instance. It's just using like the brush tools and stuff like that make it a little bit easier for doing things like foliage and that kind of thing. But eventually what I want to do, and like I said earlier, I'm not necessarily going to have time to do that today, but what I would like to do is make like a generator for like a bunch of the little smaller asteroids and stuff like that, and then I can make them rotate within like a random amount each tick. I could probably build in an automatic rotation tool is what I'm trying to say. But I want to think through that stuff before I actually start just doing it live. Mostly because I don't want to try to do something and it doesn't work the way I want it to, but B, I don't want to like give bad advice until I've had a chance to test it. Alright, now what I want to do is I want to go through each one of these guys and make all these curves linear so that they're not speeding up and slowing down. They're just rotating at a consistent rate. Right. So, that's kind of like the first step. I mean, this is the easiest shot that we were going to do. So, let me go ahead and save everything. And let's rename this. 001. Let's go ahead and duplicate this so that we can start working on the next shot, but keep everything from the first one so that things like rotation, speeds, and that type of stuff is consistent. On like the asteroids and that kind of stuff. Camera settings are consistent. Just jump into here. So now if we're looking at, actually get rid of that camera now. Alright, so this shot is going to be where the turrets start waking up. So let's go ahead and find our turret actor. Here's the turret blueprint. I kind of went over it the other day in the video I released. It's still kind of a mess right now, but we will sort some of that stuff out as we go. So what I want to do, and perhaps this will end up being 4 shots, but we'll see, is that I want to start using these triggers. And so right now, instead of at the beginning of play here, let's go ahead and set up a custom event. We're going to call it auto fire, and then we're going to plug that in and plug that into that. And so this way we can do all the turrets with a series of custom event triggers. Let me move that off the screen there. And make sure my camera's deselected. I should probably also state that this sequence is probably going to be iterative, because I am basically at this point rushing through everything to get to you know, a certain point. Trying to make a little cluster of asteroids here and some happy trees. Always remember about the happy trees. Bob Ross humor, in case you didn't get that. Kind of showing my age there a little bit, but okay. So let's grab our turret. At least for initial placement stuff, I'm going to leave this this cylinder in here. It's actually not part of the mesh. Something I added within Unreal Engine. Just so I could more easily find the placement of these turrets. Because these are actual real rocks that Epic Games had scanned for the kite demo, and so they don't really have like a realistic or I say realistic, a kind of synthetic flat surface that if I were modeling them, I would have built in. So let's go ahead and set up our camera. And we are going to delete these keyframes. And we want to reset these to 0. Probably going to go for a longer lens here. Aperture, focal length. I always find it important if you're going to be doing virtual or digital camera work type of thing to actually try to actually understand I probably won't stream every day, Jed, but I'm going to try to do it once or twice a week. I mean, I guess technically I could, but I need to start working on some other things too, and if I'm streaming every day, that would be kind of difficult to get anything else done. So I'm currently working on a thing that I eventually, hopefully, will end up putting on the marketplace. It's a I don't really want to say what it is yet, but it's a tool for helping people who don't know Blueprint Yeah, I don't really. It's a blueprint based tool for helping people do a certain thing that is simple enough, but I want to give people the ability to make um, several different variations of the same idea within the same tool. Um, so like you basically go through like a list of drop downs and um, that type of thing. Um, Trying to get the framing on this right. Thanks, Jed. Okay. So now I'm going to add an event track. And if we go back to our turret actor here, we know that we have a activate turret event that we've created, a custom event. In order to trigger that event, because sequencer I do not believe communicates directly to events within the level. I could be mistaken on that. What we can do is we can go ahead and I don't know if this particular thing is actually required or not. I just do it for when I'm executing code for the sequence. But what we're going to do to get around that issue, so we're going to open up our level blueprint now. I really never recommend anyone using the level blueprint unless they absolutely have to. For one, you can't as easily migrate stuff from one level blueprint to the other. And if you do, and you're referencing any actors within your particular level, they all already have to be in there. And so 99 times out of 100, your blueprint will break anyway, because even if you have like the same objects in there, Unreal might see them as different, because they will each get a unique name associated with them, like a string of numbers. And so I don't recommend using the level blueprint unless you absolutely need to, and this is one of those times when you kind of really need to. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab all our turrets, and we're going to drag references to them into our level blueprint. And then we are going to make an array. 2, 3. We're going to plug all that in there. We're going to create the custom event here. Custom event, and we're going to call this I'll just call it AT for now because it's easier for activate turret. And then we're going to create a for each loop. We're going to plug that custom event into here. And what the for each loop does is basically for every item in your array, this will execute once. And so it's essentially like a repeat for each actor in the array, each item in the array. All right, so we're going to then put a delay on here, and we're going to promote this float. We're going to promote that to a variable, and we're going to call it execute delay. It doesn't matter if I spelled it right or not. From here, actually, you know what? I don't need that. Do not need that variable. So what we'll just do, we're just going to do a random float within range. Random float within range. This is what I was going to plug that variable into, but for this I don't really need to. So maybe we'll do it a minimum of 0.25 seconds and a maximum of 0.75 seconds. Alright, and from there, so from here we're now going to do cast to turret blueprint. I am unfortunately obsessed with reroute nodes, as you'll find out. I just really dislike, even like this little bit of crossing here, but I really dislike things kind of getting in the way of other things. All right, so if we go back to our turret blueprint, we know we have an event called activate turret. So what we're going to pull from this pin here, we're going to do activate turret. And so now, when we send an event from sequencer to here, to this event here, it's going to trigger within a random range. I might even lessen this one a little bit. All the turrets in here, and we can add to it. We can take it, take stuff away. It doesn't really matter. And so let's just go ahead and comment this. Activate turrets. And just because I like to have everything kind of color coded. Alright. So now we have this event down here. Let's go properties, and we're going to call this event AT. Just save everything. Alright, so what won't happen when we hit play is that these won't animate unless we're actually simulating within Unreal Engine. And so I may be mistaken here. Oh, great. Now my dog's starting to bark. Always fun. just go ahead and give my camera a little bit of rotation here. Just a little bit of motion. We won't be able to see it or see the turrets doing their thing until we're simulating. So what I need to do is I need to go back to my level blueprint, and I need to grab my sequence, drag a reference to it. And then we're just going to do a event begin play. Basically, my dog's barking is because she's lonely. All right, so that way, when I simulate, the sequence player will automatically start playing, theoretically, right? We're on simulate. Okay, so something in the turret BP is automatically let's go ahead and disable that for now. What does it say our errors are? So let's make sure it is being called. Disable that. What's the activation height? It's 160, right? So that should work. We can hand key these, so that's not it's not ideal. It's not the way I wanted to do it, but I don't recall that I've actually tested this. Not executing else. Something like it. All right. Should have closed Facebook. Thanks, Chilton. So for now, let me just go ahead and hand key this. It's not really what I wanted to do. So it looks like everything is triggering, but the animation isn't actually playing. Pretty sure the cast isn't failing. I hate debugging live. So let's just go put string. So if the cast fails at all, it should say, and it's not. Another possibility is one successfully lifted up. So it is actually working. Okay. Each loop should just work, but because it doesn't seem to be, let me let's do this a slightly different way. We're gonna keep the delay. We're gonna get rid of that. Get rid of that. And we'll just plug that in directly. One, get rid of that. Okay. Actually, I don't need that. We're going to be a little bit more brute forcey about it. Plug that in. Do that. Okay, so get rid of that. And from here, we're going to add a sequence. And essentially, a sequence is just do this, then do that, and then do that. So it's just a way of better organizing your executions when you have multiple different things going on. Okay. So let's 0.25. So let's try that. There we go. All right. Alright, so now instead of doing the for each loop, although that should work, and I'm not sure why it's not, but now we're doing it more directly. What I can do, as opposed to doing this randomly, so let's do that, 0 delay. Grab that one. Point 0.1. that one 0.35. Grab that one 0.42. All right. There we go. Just give them slightly different execution times. So now they all come up on their own. So now that we know that, let's go ahead and delete the push for that. Set the rotation. So that's going to be our camera move. Save. Okay. That should have worked. But that doesn't matter because when we render it to file, everything will execute anyway. So. Because when you render to file out of Unreal Engine, that is it automatically simulates when you do that. So all right. So let's go ahead and make this a little bit longer. We want to bring this guy in. Bring that guy in. That guy in. And that guy in. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to get a transform track for that actor. Actually, what we want is let's get rid of that transform track because we don't need that one. What we want is we want to get the various components. So we're going to go turret body. Then we're going to get the transform track for that. There we go. So, after this trigger, we're going to give it some rotation, keyframes there. So after this trigger, let's give it about a full second. And we were going to change the yaw here. Alright, and now we're going to go get the turret guns base. We're going to get the transform for that. So about halfway through here, we're going to set a rotation keyframe. And then we're going to go about double that. And then we're going to bring the pitch up. Like that. And so we want to do the same thing for all these descendants here. And this is one of the reasons why I want to do the whole, to eventually get the absolute everything so that I can start doing this with event base stuff, so that I can kind of pre-can everything, so I can put like a target out off camera somewhere. Turrets activate, then turrets go, oh, I need to rotate towards this target, and then they'd all do that kind of, based on events, like you would for a game. So this is kind of the brute force method right now, but let's see if I can get through this as quickly as I can. So forgive me if I get quiet again. Turret body and turret guns base. So let's might as well start it right here. Rotation. Down. And we're going to change it to yaw. Get the transform for that. Also going to do that, but we're going to start the pitch change about halfway through the move for that, and finish it about twice as long after that. Etc., etc. So look for the keyframe for that. Grab the third one here. Get the body, get the gun's base, transform for that. Set a keyframe for its rotation. The transform for the gun turret. For the barrels for the gun turret there. Adjust their pitch. Turret body. So do that for base here. Let's get the transform for that. Pull this back a little bit. So rotation keyframe. Move forward a little bit. Change the oops. Transform for that. Keyframe for pitch. A little bit beyond that. Alright. So now if we play it, obviously that takes too long, so we're going to shrink that down as much as we can. try that. That's a lot better. And so now, let's go back to our event track. And we're going to drop another event here. And we're going to go back to our level blueprint. And we're basically going to copy all this code. And we're going to create another custom event. And this time we're going to call it FT for fire turret. Plug that in. And instead of calling the activate turret, we're going to call it the fire weapon. My dog is out there crying, trying to break my heart. Okay, so now, theoretically, we're doing fire weapon, which should fire once. I'm going to bypass, actually it is already bypassed, never mind. Bypass the fire weapon, our is active bool. Let's go ahead. Okay. That is resetting. Afterwards. Shouldn't do that. Just give it 50 seconds. It does go up too high. Actually, go back in here. Height. Bring it down to 100. Yeah, go up so high, but that's fine. They aren't firing, though. Oh, I know why. Erp. I did not name the event. I've never been wild about how the event system works, but so now that they all do that, everything fires. Let's go ahead and add more of these. So let's right click on that. We're gonna copy that, and we're just gonna go should be able to paste that. Should be able to. If not, and when in doubt, just start dropping. I wish there was a keyboard shortcut for add keyframe. I don't know if there is. It's possible that I set a bunch of these up at once. Possible they don't really let you cut and paste event triggers. Don't think I've ever had the opportunity to try. So copy a bunch. There we go. Guess you just have to have more than one selected. Okay, so now save that. Okay, good. Let's stop that. They did fire at the beginning, so I need to make sure it didn't drop anything off at the beginning. Okay. Funny thing is that it's not, the camera isn't taking over like it's supposed to. Let me see if real quick if there's a way I might be able to fix that. Option is here. No. All right. Do apologize if this has gotten boring, but that's what happens when I'm thinking too hard. Okay, so I think if I'm not simulating and I just do selected viewport, it should work. Yeah, okay. You can see the barrel action and all that kind of stuff's happening. All right, so let me just set up my lens on this camera. Current aperture, bring that down. another thing I want to do is I want to make the lights on the turret weapon brighter. So let's, or maybe increase its attenuation radius and see if that helps with yeah, a little bit. So let's make the light itself brighter. I do eventually want to replace that particle effect. To something a little bit more unique. And not so default, because that's that particle effect actually comes with Unreal Engine. So it's possible I can swap that out for a better one. Or not. I'd have to make one. I'm not really prepared to do that because I've got about 30 minutes left in the stream, so let's go ahead and save all that. The one thing that I really wish was easier to do in this process, and it's possible, you know, it's not as hard as I think it is. All right. So what I want to do is I want to do a little bit of camera shake. Let me move this up here. All right. So every time we fire off the weapon here. So 1, 2, 3. Actually, okay. Yeah, okay. And then here, I want to go 1. So here, let's go to the graph editor. Actually, that's roll. I don't want roll. Just want to do the pitch here. Before I do that, I need to set one more keyframe. So now, do that, do that. So that when it fires, you get a little bit of camera shake. too much. Play that. So basically we just need to copy Not sure what selecting that I have to deselect every time that happens, but go ahead and see that what that looks like. Maybe too much, we'll see. Still think it's too much, yeah. Alright. And also this whole keyframe here is bad. Oops. There we go. Alright, so let's select that. Go back into our curves. Yeah, so See what that looks like. A little bit too, especially at the beginning, it's a little bit weird. So, too much of this. This is the part that takes the longest, of course. And it's the most boring, I am sure. But fortunately, it's one of those things that we kind of need to do if we're trying to do this type of effect. So let's see. Lasting part of that. If you think of the motion as like a wave, just a little bit of afterwards. And essentially the camera shake is the energy from the weapon going through the camera, and that the energy should continue to affect the camera after it passed. We just need to basically it's imparting a bit of an oscillation that we just need to kind of tone down after. Continue that. Then here, take our camera, keyframe, may or may not work, we'll see. Right. So let's get rid of that. Back to pitch. Basically what I'm hunting for now is the is the shuttle. This actor here. So by the time I get here, let me actually. Help if I kind of back up. So let's get rid of those keyframes. Did you come back? A little bit hard to grab. Moving fast enough, so not sure I like this second part of the shot yet. No more pop-ups from you. All right. It's a bit weird. There, basically need to do a whip pan. Yeah, I've gotten really quiet, and I apologize for that. Basically, I'm just trying to dress the scene at this point. Here, let's see. Just trying to make, just trying to force this shot to look good at this point. Move that planet again. That's weird. Missing the original set of keyframes here. Need to fix. So I guess I've gotten through 2 shots in 2 hours. I'm just about done with this one here. Rotate these. All right. So let's see what we're at. As I am wrapping up, I fix that camera pin. And of course the still too much camera animation happening at the end. That's no big deal. If we go into cinematic preview is on. Top of my head, I forget how to get the camera guides, but you don't really need them. What I do need is to remove all like this, like this part here. So we're gonna go to yaw. We're gonna go drop it to here, and we're just going to do that. Pitch here. It's a little bit weird. Why is that so weird? Obviously we're going to cut pretty much right there, but let's just go ahead and make sure everything's saved. I'm not happy with it. I wonder if the problem I'm having is actually to do with how many keyframes here on the camera. Wrong. Really don't like the way it looks like it's falling. That's probably this keyframe right here. Too bad. Looks better. Looks better. Okay, so let's deselect everything. Stop playback here. Let's hit play one more time. All right. So that's where I'm going to stop it. I've been going for about 2 hours and 21 minutes. Really just 2 hours of actual stream time. But I want to thank everyone who watched. I know right now I'm the only person in here because it got really quiet there after a while, and that's my fault. But that's what happens when you're actually trying to animate and you're focused on what you're trying to do. But I will most likely pick this up where I left off next time I stream, which is going to be maybe middle of next week, or maybe early in the day, or maybe mid-afternoon, or early in the afternoon on Monday, probably. Maybe right around noon on Monday, perhaps. But we'll see. That would be the earliest, but I gotta check schedules and all that kind of thing. So, again, thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys again soon. Bye.